Hi everyone, this is LoCascio and this is Over the Wall. Today is a really special day. It's Tony Hsieh's birthday and he would have been 47 years old. Obviously, Tony passed away 2 weeks ago. It's a great tragedy to the world. He was so inspirational. And I'm very fortunate to have two special people who were in Tony's life from the beginning. One is Alfred Lin. Alfred is now a partner at Sequoia Capital, but he was there at the beginning. He even met Tony in college. They built another company together and then Zappos. And then I've got Fred Mossler, who was one of the first employees at Zappos and really became the operational hand for Tony and continues even when he left to be an entrepreneur and do great things in the world. These two really talk about the insights into what made Zappos special and more importantly, what made Tony special. You know, he's just one of these people I say he's in the rarefied air of entrepreneurs that did amazing things with his company. He gave back. I was so fortunate to meet him over 10 years ago, and he gave so much to me over the years. And I just think we're very lucky on this important day to have these two here to really dig deep into the entrepreneurial journey and also the journey of building such a great company like Zappos. So enjoy this episode. It's really, really special. So before we jump in, I just want to offer my condolences to you two because you are, I'd say best friends of Tony. And obviously the loss was tragic and difficult, but I just want to offer you two the condolences and hopefully this will be a celebration of his life today. So thanks for being here first.
Thank you, Rob.
When you guys met, and maybe we could go there for a second, talk about the employees, you guys were at the beginning. I don't believe in accidents. I don't know if you guys do, but like you meet people in your life and they take you on a journey or you take them on a journey and you join forces. What attracted you to Tony and vice versa?
Well, I met Tony in college. We met at a dorm party and we bonded over crazy business ideas. He wanted to run our late night student food joint with his friend Sanjay Madden, classmate, and they talked about buying a pizza oven, renting arcade games, and putting in TVs to play reruns of Star Trek, and things that were just not done before. And that, you know, he just thought about like, well, how come you think you can put this level of investment in where other people have not? And he was just like, it's simple. Everybody else ran it as a senior. I'm going to run it for 2 years instead of just one. And I can outbid everybody else and invest more than anybody else because rationally, I'm going to run it over 2 years and amortize the investment over 2 years. And to win the...
I can't believe you guys are... when I was in college, I didn't even think about advertising anything except the beer in my mouth. But it's amazing you guys were already... So there's some... You guys were already in the business mind back then, huh?
We were, and you know, a year, you know, so he won the bid to run the grill. He ran the grill for 2 years. I was fortunate enough to be one of his biggest customers because I had a large college rooming group. I would leave a year earlier to come out to grad school in the Bay Area, and even he had different ideas of where a Subway's franchise should be or shouldn't be, but. Luckily, he didn't follow his love of food and restaurants, but he went into the internet business and started Link Exchange and with Sanjay, and I worked there soon after that. We were fortunate enough to exit that company to Microsoft, but it was always we did some things that were quite interesting. We had no experience doing it. We took the work seriously. He never took it seriously. He was always riffing on random connections and random ideas. Conversations were always entertaining with him and thought-provoking. He just had a knack for connecting what seems to be random ideas, going off to what seems like a tangent, but he would then bring it all back. And I asked him once, well, how do you come up with these gems, these great ideas? And he basically said, everybody wants the gems, but it actually takes effort to put ideas out there, get them rejected, refine them, and repeat. And that was just a glimpse of how his mind always worked. And it was this beautiful mind, always challenging assumptions, And he would take deliberate effort to think critically and challenge the status quo. So his thoughts were far from tangents. They were actually way more well thought through than what people might have thought when he throws out these crazy ideas. And it's probably why when he spoke, people listened, even though it seemed crazy at the time.
Fred, when you met Tony, and actually what a great thing would be to know, like, what's a crazy idea he put out there that you're like, okay, that's really out there, but it actually probably worked.
I guess, I kind of grew to love Tony. I didn't fall in love with Tony, I would say, because I was technically recruited by the founder, Nick, and Tony wasn't involved for essentially the first 6 months of the business, and then he started to get involved, but I wasn't close to him at that time. We just, I didn't have a lot of exposure to Tony, but I think one thing that people should know about Tony, because, as we reflect now on his legacy and all the amazing things that he did, the Tony that I remembered back in the early days was a guy that, I felt bad for him. I felt sorry for him. And I'll explain that. It was the dot-com bust shortly after, they made Tony and Alfred invested in Zappos. And he joined us and was there shoulder to shoulder helping to build the company. And then we went through 9/11 and we remember all of that and what that did to our business. And Tony, not only did he get into the trenches with us and work harder than anyone else in the company, he was coding, he'd work 18 hours a day. He was, relentless in his focus on our business. He also liquidated many of his personal assets to invest in Zappos because no one else was interested in investing in an internet shoe company at the time. Nobody really got the vision that, shoes, you could sell shoes online, and capital dried up. And I used to just think, gosh, this guy is, selling property to invest in Zappos. And even though I saw the vision and, we had all of our employees were passionate about a journey, I thought, what is this guy doing? He's working so hard. He's liquidating assets to invest in this company. Every day was uncertain. And, but he believed, he believed in what it could be, and he staked everything he had on it. And that's the story of Tony that I don't know a lot of people realize. And that wasn't, 12 months and then he was off writing books or doing bus tours. That was years, that was year after year of just grinding and hard work before we started to kind of get it off the ground.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times people think that they see these success stories and they think it's like rags to riches and it happens in 5 years. But it seems like what you're saying is what I've talked about a lot, is that this journey is a long journey and you got to be willing to you got to get in there and work. I would say you're working hard, not just running people, but you're in doing the work and learning at the same time of building a business and hiring people and doing everything. But it's a long journey. Did he change over time? Like I know myself, like, and probably if you guys do, like, as you build the business forces you to change. You saw him so early in his career here. How did he change, or what are some of the things you saw him grow over the years?
Well, everybody changes, but to me, Tony will always be Tony because I knew him in college. And the things that changed were he gained more confidence in his ideas. He was not afraid to sort of throw ideas out. I think when you're not successful, you're just like, okay, people are just going to shut me down. He's like, okay, well, not all of my ideas going to work, but let's throw them out and have people challenge them. And he would throw out, let's say, 1,000 ideas, and he knew that 90% of it, 900 of them were not going to work. 90 of them would be good, but probably not worth pursuing. 9 of them were definitely worth pursuing, and 1 of them would be genius. And the whole process of that, he just became more and more comfortable with just proposing ideas, because you just don't know where these genius ideas come from. some of the things that we could go back in time and say those were really genius ideas, like moving to Las Vegas after the .com bust, because people could find a much more livable city. It was a 24-hour city. It was a great place to have a call center. The employees in San Francisco were always chasing the next shiny penny, and we needed to create a stable place to build a call center. That was genius. It seemed crazy at the time, but I don't think enough credit is given to that. And I think I want to just emphasize what Fred was saying about the near-death experiences that Zappos had to go through. Zappos went through many near-death experiences. When we were recruiting Fred, I think he might have erased this from his memory because it was so traumatic for him. He was the beloved person at Nordstrom's. Every single footwear company would take his meeting. He joined us and had all these meetings set up with all these vendors. And then he went in and proceeded to go to these meetings formerly as a Nordstrom's rep, but he would tell them, I'm now a Zappos rep. I'm working for Zappos, which is an online shoe company, and proceeded to get kicked out of every single meeting.
How did you deal with that?
That's true.
How did you deal with that?
True.
How did you deal with that? You went from like high on the totem pole.
I'm sadistic, Rob. I love rejection.
But also, like when Tony and I decided to invest in Zappos, we had tranched the investment. We had committed to invest $2 million. It would be coming in at $500,000 tranche. The day that we made the commitments, people felt great at Zappos. The next day, NordstromShoes.com would get $25 million from Benchmark. And we were always in a, sort of a fight for our lives throughout the 10-year journey from beginning to what people thought was an overnight success when we sold to Amazon.
Yeah, I keep journals. I've been journal writing since the beginning of my company, and every now and then I go back to the journals in the first 5 years, and I'm horrified by the journals because it's like, I can't make payroll today. Okay, I can buy a suit so I can go to meetings. Okay, I can't make payroll. It's like the up and down of that. How do you handle that? Like it's the natural force. I call it the wall. Like there's these walls that are put up, I think, to get rid of people who are not committed. But for a lot of people, it's insane to have a job where you're up and down, and you're like, how do you deal with that emotionally? I'm curious, how did Tony deal with it? It's just, for entrepreneurs, I think this is nerve-wracking. They think, am I not doing it right? Am I losing? Am I not smart enough? I don't have the education. There's a lot of that, the little thing in their head. But how do you get over that? How did you guys get through it?
I think in the early days, you just have a sense of commitment to one another. And that's what kind of forms that we couldn't let Tony down. He was inspiring us. He was working so hard. He was putting it all on the line, and we couldn't let him down. And I'm sure that Tony and Alfred felt the same about us. They didn't want to let us down either. And so you're just kind of in this rowboat together, and you just keep rowing. And you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for everyone else.
And I think also Tony always asked the question, what can go right as opposed to what can go wrong? At any given point in time, no matter how good or how bad things are, you should ask those two questions, but because you don't want to go down the path of doing things incorrectly, but focus more on what can go right and how you can improve from your situation, whatever the situation is.
What do you think then inspired Tony? Because if he's got that what if, like the big thing, like the very positive. I don't know, Fred, what do you think inspired him? You both can answer the question, but what inspired him? Because he obviously inspired people to take this journey. What inspired him, you think?
Initially, what inspired him was creating the greatest customer experience, customer service company in the world, a brand that was based around the customer experience, a leading customer experience. But Tony had a quote, and and I'm not sure where he got the quote, but a great brand is a story that's constantly unfolding. And so I think what inspired Tony was the next chapter. You know, what is the next chapter of this company or this journey? And so moving from, you know, a service company that happened to sell shoes to a company that was focused on company culture, to a company that was focused on delivering happiness, and then moving into creating the fourth C of community and focusing on, you know, building the headquarters in downtown Las Vegas. There was always another chapter, and I think that's what inspired Tony.
Alfred, what do you think inspired him?
I think Fred's right. He's always interested in the next chapter, and he had many chapters from the Quincy House Grill to Link Exchange to Venture Frogs to Zappos, and then from Zappos the business to customer service to culture to community to downtown Las Vegas. He had many chapters. There are sub chapters in each of those stories as well. I would say Tony has, he's well read. He's always thinking about the next thing. He's always, so I think there are a lot of things that inspire him too. And he takes inspiration from everyone. And his personal motto would be to inspire and be inspired. And so he draws inspiration from almost every single place or person or company that was out there, because he could learn from everyone. He did, you know, in many ways, he has a novelty gene and be able to connect novel ideas together.
The culture that you guys created there is around community. And when you think about creating that culture, it means that there's not one person that really matters and is at the top and is most important. That's the sense I got. So maybe you could talk a little bit about, you know, how did that come about? Is it because of Tony's personality, or what happened there at the beginning? Because that really was at the heart of the Zappos experience. And I think it became the fourth C with three C's, then it was the fourth. So maybe Fred, I don't know if you want to take that one. You know, how did that blossom? How did that come about?
I think my background was Nordstrom, and our focus was always on customer experience, but it always amazed me that Tony innately knew that by delivering the very best customer experience, that and delivering a wow experience, he focused a lot on surprise and delight, turning wow into a verb, that would build a great business, that you wouldn't spend your dollars. He didn't believe in spending the dollars on paid marketing. He wanted to put those dollars into the customer experience to drive word of mouth. And so every touch point that the customer had with Zappos needed to be a wow experience. And in fact, he believed that that culture and that customer experience needed to be provided by the employees. And so the happy employees would provide a wonderful customer experience. And so he focused his attention on building that company culture through those employees. And I think a great example of how Tony thought about company culture and where he put his money where his mouth was that he believed that actually the company culture, as we evolved, was more important than the customer. An example of that would be a company picnic. We would close down the call center. That wasn't the best experience for the customer, but he believed that was an investment we needed to make into our people to make them happy in order to deliver that great experience.
Do you guys ever think, I mean, when I went and visited Zappos that first time in 2009, I was just blown away once again by the people, the culture, the enthusiasm. I did the tour and then had lunch with Tony. But I guess, you know, and then I went on my journey, and I thought sometimes I would tilt too much internal, and you know, I would be too inward focused on ourselves versus our customers. And it seems like the balance of that is hard, you know, and how do you get that right building a company? Because there's a belief that if people are happy who work there and they care about everything and you care for them, they're going to care for the customer.
Well, I think if you think about a company in sort of a holistic sense, you can put inputs in and then you get outputs. If you think about company as a black box, and the reason I like thinking about this that way is you can only control what you put into it. You can't really control the output, but you kind of can measure what things work and what things do not. And I think a lot of boards focus on the outputs. They focus on profits, on growth. They focus on your financial performance. Those things are all outputs. The ultimate input is selection for the customers, customer service, et cetera. But if you had to sort of pare it all the way back, the things that sort of help the business success is the people. And so I think Tony's observation is you can't really over-rotate on focusing on the people. And in fact, I think his reason for trying to understand corporate culture and trying to create a culture where people are happy is you can't have happy customers without happy employees. And creating a culture where the employees are happy and want to work at a company is probably the ultimate competitive advantage that you can have.
You guys did a lot of crazy things over there. I got to tell you, like when I arrived in Vegas, I was like, whoa. I was like, I can't even believe the company functioned. Like I often thought like we're a technology company, and I was blown away. I was thinking like if you gave a tour to someone who's like a big General Electric who had, they think they had black belts and everything else, and they come to you guys and there's like, it's chaos. It looked like chaos. But what were sort of a couple of kooky things that you guys did or so unique, and you were but everyone had smiles. I don't know, that just was like that no other company in the world would have ever thought about doing.
We, I guess in the retail industry, the vendors live in service of the retailer. And, I think that was something that, we flipped on its head. And, we bought shuttles to bring our vendors into our offices. We wouldn't allow them to roll their bags, their shoe bags into our offices. The buyers would go out and get their shoe bags. And remember, we're the customer, right? They're the ones selling to us.
Yep.
And but we're the ones picking them up from the airport and rolling their shoe bags in. And we'd throw a party in Las Vegas for them, a vendor appreciation party. And to my knowledge, we're the only retailer that ever threw a party to appreciate their vendors, to say thank you. And what that created in our vendors was the spirit of partnership that didn't exist in any other place of business. They were. And so they were always constantly fighting to help improve Zappos, to make Zappos a better company from the vendor standpoint. And it gave us a phenomenal reputation in that community, which then allowed us access to ever better brands. And so if you went to a vendor appreciation party, they were kooky. You'd see penguins walking around or goats or, all sorts of crazy things. And Tony would personally curate these vendor appreciation parties. He wouldn't share the details with myself. I don't know if he shared them with Alfred. It was like top secret because he wanted everybody to be surprised and delighted when they walked in. And he would stand at the front of the venue and he would greet all of the vendors coming in to the party to say thank you for being a great partner at Zappos.
Yeah, that rarely happens. I don't remember the last time like our customers who treat us like vendors had a party for us. It's mostly they want to like put you down to get a better price on you.
Right.
Well, so I guess it just came from the concept once again of you extended the community beyond the four walls of Zappos, right?
Yeah.
That's where it is. So, Alfred, you're an amazing venture capitalist, and you see a lot of CEOs. Since you started at Sequoia, probably how many pitches have you gotten? How many has it been so far, you think?
Probably thousands a year. I've seen pitches in thousands of. So I've been there for 10 years. So
yeah, let's say 10,000 pitches you've seen in your life. So, and you've only funded a handful.
Yes.
And so for, you know, entrepreneurs out there, and most venture capitalists, you know, like to fund the entrepreneur, and then there's the idea, right? Because they know an idea without a good entrepreneur will not really, has a lower probability of being successful. But what do you look for? What is the one that makes it an Airbnb, a DoorDash? You know, what is it, and what do you see?
I think that it does come down to the founder and their ability to articulate what's wrong with the world and why do they have a better solution for whatever problem that they're attacking. Many of them have a personal pain with the problem that they want to solve. I think Tony always felt like for Zappos, you know, why we funded Zappos, we always felt like customer service could just be a lot better. And thinking through of like being very, very critical and say, well, lots of companies have had whatever idea they've had, but what makes your idea special? What sort of critically have you thought through to sort of challenge the assumptions of that industry? And then I think, you know, since, you know, you mentioned Airbnb and DoorDash, Airbnb started because Brian, Joe, and Nate felt like the way we traveled was not a good way to travel, it was commoditized. Now that the way we were traveling was a commoditized way that my father liked, he felt like this was a feature that we had he had the same room everywhere he went around the world. When he goes to Howard Johnson's, I can find the hairdryer in the same drawer in every single Howard Johnson around the world. To Brian, Joe, and Nate, that was a complete bug in the system. And they wanted to create a much more authentic way to travel and for people to travel not like a stranger, but they can belong anywhere. And in DoorDash's case, Tony worked in a restaurant. He knows the pains and struggles of a restaurant because his mom worked at a restaurant. He would help her wash dishes next to her. And he just knew that these restaurants were struggling. They had a lot of kitchen capacity, but they didn't have, they could only turn the front of the house 2 or 3 times per meal. And why not produce, because they had this kitchen capacity, why not take orders for delivery? And so he just had both of these companies, both of the founders had unique insights into a problem that they personally faced, and they think the world could be made better by it. And certainly that was the case for Zappos with Nick and with Tony's help.
But do you see something in them? Like, is there something, like if you were just going to say there's 2 or 3 traits, obviously good idea, looking at the world differently, but is there other like 2 or 3 traits you're like, that's, and Fred, also you've funded companies too, so feel free to jump in and like, what are those 1 or 2 things like that's somebody who has a higher probability of making it?
Original thinker, I would say also relentless. They just unstoppable, just relentless in their sort of pursuit of that, whatever they want to do. And just they're infectious in their own way. They just draw people in. You want them to win and you want to join them.
How did Tony motivate? I guess I kind of feel like he was obviously, he had infectious optimism and stuff like that. But what do you think, what was his force that really got people to follow him?
Tony actually, I think, was anti-motivation. Tony was about inspiration. You know, Tony felt that, you know, if we had the right purpose as a company and people were inspired by that purpose, then they would follow the journey. And then we were very critical about who we brought into the company. The hiring process, we did a technical interview and we did a separate team did a culture fit interview. And we were looking for people that believed in what we believed in and that believed in our purpose. And if you get that right, then you actually don't need to motivate anyone. They'll be self-motivated. So that was actually a word that he didn't care for. He believed that you needed to inspire.
When you think about one of the most challenging times that you went through with Tony at building Zappos, What can you remember that? And then how did Tony get people through it, or how did you guys get it through it? What was one of those times?
I think there was one of the challenges. I remember sitting down with Tony, and Tony said, we started out as a dropship where we would access the vendor's inventory. We didn't carry any inventory of our own. And so we'd receive an order, and we would forward it along, and they would ship it out of their warehouse. And we were 100% dropship. And there were some brands that didn't have the capability of drop shipping, so we started buying inventory, and we found that brands where we fulfilled the orders, the customer was just much happier. We controlled the entire fulfillment experience. So we reached a point, and we were doing several hundred millions of dollars in business, and we reached a point where about 25% of our business was drop ship, and 75% was fulfilled through our own fulfillment center. And Tony said, what do we want to be when we grow up? Do we want to be the world's largest shoe site? Or do we want to does Zappos want to stand for the best customer experience? And if we put on our hat of the best customer experience and filter all of our decisions through that, then that would tell us we need to walk away from 25% of our revenue today. And so we turned the key overnight and turned off 25% of our revenue. And because we had to wear the customer experience hat, every decision was filtered through that. But you'll see time and time again throughout Zappos, Tony believed, what is our purpose? What do we stand for? And regardless of the pain, that's what we need to do.
Yeah, so you and I had the same story, because there was revenue being turned off with 25% off of a very meaningful base. It's a very meaningful base of revenue. As Fred said, it was probably slightly higher than 100, less than 2, but it's $25–30 million evaporating for the year. You try to tell your board that when you make one of these crucible moments, and be able to show people that this is the way this is the proper path. This was the best way to provide customer service, because we control the inventory. We knew exactly what was in our inventory. We didn't have to rely on someone else to send the product out. There were some vendors that did it. Even the vendors that had the capability, there are some that did it well, and there are some that did not do it very well. And one of the biggest complaints that we have were customers that got their product late or the wrong product, and we wanted to just control all of that experience.
An important lesson that came out of those crises, I think, for us, was one of our core values was to do more with less, and that core value came out of those times. And one thing that Tony famously believed and said often was that, and this is important for entrepreneurs, that he said it's never a lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness. And so, if even in the trying times or the lean times, you still have plenty of resources available, they might not just be capital. And so you have to work harder to figure it out.
Yeah, I think people forget that big companies started from small companies and small ideas. Everyone thinks you need to have a lot of resources to go into markets and go after big markets, but it just starts with a small idea, a big idea, actually, that you can manifest. But it's not always about money. It's not always about having billions of dollars or millions of dollars to have great ideas. I think about Microsoft when it got started. I think when it went public, it raised 25 million or 30 million. It was like, when you look back at their IPO and look at what they built off of, like, not having billions of dollars like we have today, it just seems like you need to be, and sometimes I think they say, the pressure creates the diamond, right? The pressure creates the beauty in a company.
Yeah, in some cases, I think companies today start out with too much money.
Yeah.
Compare us, at Zappos getting 2 million over time versus NordstromShoes.com getting 25 million, and who ended up winning. I often see that when when money is poured into an inefficient company, it just causes more inefficiency, as opposed to when you have less resources, you think more critically from the start, and you're more imaginative about what you need to do and how to be both better than your competition, but also different. Zappos won because we were different. We were focused on customer service. We were focused on selection. It wasn't just about having more resources, more money in the bank.
You know, there's been a lot of stuff in the news about Tony in the last couple of weeks, and I think, you know, there's a narrative there at the end of his life of things that happened. And I don't think we need to go into that because people are writing about it. But I think it'd be interesting if you guys, if you had some perspective on, you know, what happened in the last year with him.
You know, I think this year has been difficult for everyone. I think everyone has felt the isolation, and a person like Tony, who was so open and so community focused, I can only imagine that the impact that this year had on him.
Tony was all about creating a community and creating shared experiences, and I think COVID was very, very hard on someone who was focused on that. And I think the 21st anniversary of Zappos has hit him a bit hard. He started to think about what's next.
I guess, you know, he left Zappos, obviously. Also, I often think when I leave the company, you know, I'm now 25 years in it, I often think of that day. And I can't speculate what he felt about that, but I'm scared of that day. I often think like the company has such a, it's like a child that you've raised, and then you leave it, and all the people. I don't, you know, when he died, I was thinking about that. You know, like I wonder what impact that would have on him. Like, what impact does that have on an entrepreneur? And he was so deeply loving of that company. So just perspective. You know, I read this book, Joan Didion, the author. She lost her husband a number of years ago, and she wrote a book right after. And there's one thing that struck me in the book, and I'd lost an uncle at the same time who I really loved dearly, and he was very young. But she wrote that in people dying, when somebody dies, there's a gift they leave you. There's a last gift they leave you, because something strange happens in your brain. You start to have these, you know, these thoughts about that person, and I don't know about you guys, but you start working through your own life and your relationship and your own. So I'm wondering, like, through his passing, is there something you've thought about, like a last gift? I know it's early, it's 2 weeks, and it may take 2 years to understand the gift, but is there something you've reflected on of the gift from him?
You're right, Rob. It's you know, the last few weeks have been incredibly painful and overwhelming. I guess, you know, a gift was, you know, and as I said, it's just hard, but he just had this belief. Alfred wrote a wonderful letter to Tony, a tribute in Forbes, and reached out to me for a small contribution. And what I wrote was Tony's just belief in that everyone had an internal superpower, and that he was really so humble, and he never had all the answers. He believed that everyone had something to contribute. And I hope that I can hold that in my heart for the rest of my life and live that, because that's, for somebody as accomplished as Tony, that's a very powerful statement. I
would just say that, you know, he just thought everything should be challenged and anything is possible in almost every way that he lived his life. It wasn't just about business. And, you know, a lot of what we talked about today was mostly about business and how to get people to their full potential, how to create community, how to create customer service. But to Fred's point, his fascination with taking the ordinary to the extraordinary is the gift I sort of think about, which is anything that is ordinary can be taken to an extraordinary level, and just doesn't take, takes a little bit more effort, but it doesn't take a lot more. And you know, as someone who has been a friend of his, a business partner of his, a person who has been around and held my son at probably, I think I brought him out from San Francisco to Las Vegas at 1 month to sort of go back to Zappos and share that joy with him. I think, you know, I think I'm reminded by a quote that Winnie the Pooh, from Winnie the Pooh, that my son talked about, which is how lucky I am to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard. And that's probably the real gift, which is the friendship of, and that is so special that it's really hard to say goodbye.
I'd like to, and if you don't mind, just giving like 1 minute of silence to him and to people who are going to watch this. He's such an extraordinary person and so giving. I was so touched by him. Obviously, you guys were his friends, his best friends, and you worked with him and all through his career and his life, and you were on a different relationship than I had. But I think for entrepreneurs, he just is so, he's one of those Steve Jobs, you know, he's one of those people that is inspiring and I know gets people out of bed. And so I was thinking if we could just give 1 minute of silence to him. It's his birthday and we can end there. I thought it'd be great. And people who are watching this, you know, take a minute of silence and think about your life, because being an entrepreneur is hard. Building businesses is hard. He lived an amazing life, as you could hear from these two. He's not going to have that question at the end of his life that I've always feared, which is that what if? I don't think Tony ever lived in the what if. He always lived in the possibilities. So we're just so blessed that we all met him and that he lived in our world. So if we can give him a minute of silence and say goodbye to him, that would be great. Alfred, Fred, thank you very much for your time. I assume Tony's up there watching us and proud of everyone, but I appreciate the time and sharing some insight into a wonderful person. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Happy birthday, Tony Hsieh.
Happy birthday, Tony.
I love you.
We're there.
Thanks, so.
Thanks, guys.